Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mrs. Walker.
Good afternoon.
Have you been with the special unit ever since it's been created, the sensitive case unit?
No, I haven't. 7 years.
Were you in the department when it was created?
Yes.
And it was created shortly after the 1993-94 investigation into Mr. Jackson, correct?
Objection. Beyond the scope of direct and no foundation.
Overruled. Next question.
And one of the hallmarks or one of the goals of the unit was to intensify the confidentiality of the investigation when it's a high-profile case, correct?
Yes.
And in this particular case, this unit that you supervise was assigned this case because Mr. Jackson was a high-profile celebrity, correct?
Yes.
And were you aware at the time that you commenced looking into the referral that you obtained or received that there had been a previous, 93-94 investigation by your department?
Objection. Beyond the scope of direct.
Overruled. You may answer.
I had heard that there was an investigation prior, yes.
By your department?
Yes.
And in this particular case, the investigation was conducted under your supervision with the 2 social workers that you mentioned. There was a report prepared by Miss Peters, correct?
Yes.
And it's true, is it not, that in this particular case, that the information contained in that report was leaked eventually to the press, correct?
Objection. Your Honor. Beyond the scope and relevance.
Overruled. You may answer.
I have my county counsel here, and I don't know of how to answering that question.
And 352.
At this point, the question is just whether or not the information was leaked. There's no question about anybody who did it or anything like that, so.
The information in our report, though, was not.
Okay. Just a moment. I think maybe she wants to consult with you, which I'll allow.
May I approach?
Yeah. Whereupon, an off-the-record discussion was held between the witness and Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Perhaps the court reporter can read it back.
Yes.
And it's true, is it not, that in this particular case, that the information contained in that report was leaked eventually to the press, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you went to the apartment on the 20th with the other 2 social workers, I believe you described a situation as one where Mrs. Arvizo was very friendly, correct?
Yes.
She gave everybody a big hug?
She gave all of us a hug, and so did the kids.
The kids gave you all hugs?
Yes.
And seemed to be trying to put a good face on for the situation they were in, correct?
Objection. Vague and compound.
I'll rephrase it. Did you believe they were trying to please you?
No, I believe that she had already spoken to Miss Peters on the phone and she knew that we were coming out to talk to her. And I got the impression she didn't have anything to hide, so everything. She wasn't worried about the Department of Children Family Services coming out to investigate general neglect or her failing to protect her children.
So you did not find the fact that she gave you a hug as an unusual situation?
No, no one's ever given us a hug before and she was very warm and friendly and engaging, but I didn't feel that she had anything to hide or anything.
Did you use the word disarming in describing the situation? That she was trying to disarm the situation, so she was disarming in the way she approached it?
Objection. The question is vague, ambiguous, confusing, compound.
It's compound, sustained.
Do you recall using the word disarming to describe her approach to you when you first got there?
In terms of my report, or?
I'm just asking if you recall saying that.
I don't recall.
You didn't file a report on this visit, did you?
I didn't what? I'm sorry.
You didn't file a report on this visit?
File a report.
Yeah. We're talking about the 20th.
Uh-huh.
And we're talking about Janet Ventura, the name you knew her by, Arvizo.
Right.
At the apartment. And the 3 social workers, 2 others and yourself, went to the apartment, correct?
Because a report had not.
I just asked you if you went to the apartment.
I'm sorry. Yes.
And it was a prearranged meeting?
Yes.
And with regard to that meeting, you were not going to file a report, were you? You individually, yourself.
File a report, as in write the report?
Yes, ma'am.
No. Miss Peters wrote the report.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And did you take notes?
I probably jotted down a couple of things, yes.
Do you know what happened to those notes?
Objection. Discovery. Irrelevant.
Overruled.
They were incorporated in Miss Peters's report.
So some of the things written in Miss Peters's report are things that you remembered as opposed.
Objection. Compound.
I'll rephrase it. So you reviewed her report?
Yes.
Okay. And did you see some of the things that you wrote down in her report?
Yes.
And then you didn't keep the notes?
No, because it was inputted into the computer.
Okay. Now, when you went there, you said you were introduced to some people who were already in the apartment when you arrived, correct?
Yes.
And one of the individuals that you were introduced to was. I think she was. He was described by the last witness as being a very, sort of a physically looking person, buffed out or something like that.
Objection, Your Honor.
Does that
I'm sorry.
comport with your recollection?
Objection. Improper question, quoting a prior witness, and misstates her testimony.
Sustained.
Would you describe him as well-built?
I think I said medium build.
So you wouldn't describe him as well-built?
Not to my recollection. I mean medium built.
Not muscular?
I'm sorry. I didn't understand.
Muscular.
Oh, okay.
Scratch that. Laughter.
I guess. I suppose the question is, was that a question at this point?
Well, I didn't read you the whole question. I just read you the word that you thought you couldn't understand.
You're right. I couldn't.
Rephrase your question, please.
Have you ever described this individual as being muscular?
I guess, I'm thinking medium build. I don't necessarily know if he was like, well, muscular.
Alright, we won't quibble over whether he had muscles or not. I'll just move on.
He had a shirt on, and I couldn't see him.
Okay. While you were at the apartment at some point in time, you saw another individual associated with Mr. Jackson, correct?
Yes.
You described that person as looking like what? Describe him.
When we were in the apartment, you're talking about the gentleman that was working for Mr. Jackson, or the other young lady that was there?
No. First of all, when you first arrived there, you met the person that you and I were just talking about with the medium build, correct?
Yes.
And he was in the apartment?
Yes.
And he was identified as Michael Jackson's security guard, was he not?
Yes.
Alright. Now, after the meeting was completed, did you see another person?
Yes.
That was associated with Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
And what did that person look like?
Medium height. Not too tall. Maybe 5'5", Caucasian.
Did you remember anything else unusual about him?
Well, I thought he had on makeup.
Yes. When you were asked about that, you said, well, it's Hollywood, right?
No, I don't remember saying that.
You don't remember telling the grand jury that?
No.
Alright. In any case, the particular individual that you saw when you left, the one that you described as possibly having makeup on, that's the same individual you met the next day, isn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
Now, you talked to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, or in response to counsel's questions, that you had a number of telephone calls with Janet Arvizo?
A couple.
A couple?
Uh-huh.
That's fine. And what I want to ask you is, when you received a telephone call from her, did you indicate to her that her children needed to be taken out of their apartment?
Never.
Never. Okay. And did you say that they needed to be checked out of their current school?
Never.
And that they needed to be placed at some other place to get education?
No.
Okay. You never had that conversation with Mrs. Arvizo?
No. She said that she wanted them to go to another school and to be homeschooled or to have a private tutor.
Yes, ma'am.
And that they couldn't go back to their same school because of the teasing and the attention that Gavin was getting.
But you never told her that her children needed to be taken out of their apartment?
No.
And you were never asked that by her?
No.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Now, with regard to the confidentiality issue, obviously it would be improper if somebody tape recorded a confidential conversation between you and somebody you were investigating, correct?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, at the time that the interview on the 20th was taking place, you did not know that you were being tape recorded, correct?
Correct.
And at some point thereafter, you learned that you had, in fact, been tape recorded during a part of your visit to the Arvizos on the 20th?
Yes.
And did you learn about that from the media at first?
No. My mom called me.
Okay. And she heard it on the TV, correct?
Uh-huh.
She recognized your voice?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to listen to that tape?
Never.
Okay. So you just, now, when you were at the apartment, you were introduced to this person with the medium build that was identified as a security guard for Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Did you ever see that individual hand Janet Arvizo a tape recorder?
No.
Did you see a tape recorder while you were there?
No.
Did you see this individual go into another room with Mrs. Arvizo at any point in time?
Not that I remember.
Okay, so you just don't recall one way or the other.
I don't recall.
Now, with regard to the conversations with the Arvizo children and Mrs. Arvizo, in describing, the first question that was asked is what was their relationship with Mr. Jackson, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the reason that you were there is because you had, not you personally, but your department had received some referrals from some individuals who were concerned about what they saw on the Bashir video, correct?
We received a referral based on the Martin Bashir video, yes.
And the portion of the Bashir video that was the subject of the concern was the fact that Gavin Arvizo might be sleeping with Mr. Jackson and sharing a bed with him, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to object. That calls for hearsay. It's also ambiguous, vague.
Overruled. She answered it.
And so while you indicated that the focus was on Mrs. Arvizo in terms of her being a neglectful mother, that's what you indicated, correct?
Yes.
It, in fact, focused on whether, part of that would be whether or not, in fact, she had allowed her child to sleep in a bed with a 45-year-old man, correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the conversations that you had, let's start with Mrs. Arvizo. She was asked what the nature of the relationship was with Mr. Jackson, correct?
Yes.
And she said that Michael was like a father to the children?
Yes.
To my children, is actually what she said.
Yes.
And when Gavin was asked that, he said, Michael has been like a father to me, correct?
Yes.
And then Star said, Michael is like a father to me, correct?
Yes.
And then Davellin, when she's asked that, her answer is, Michael is like a father to all of us, correct?
Yes.
Now, did Gavin also tell you during that conversation that Mr. Jackson had visited him in the hospital?
I don't remember.
Do you think it might refresh your recollection if I showed you a copy of Miss Peters's report?
Sure.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
You can ignore all my doodlings and just read it to yourself, okay? Just right here where the checkmark is. And you can read up and down if you want, either way. You sure you don't want to turn the page? Just make sure. Okay. Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
And he did say that Mr. Jackson had actually visited him in the hospital, correct?
Yes.
Now, I'm not going to go through everything, but I just would like to ask you a few questions about the rest of the interview. Based on what you recall of the interview, was it your understanding that the mother was spending most of the time in the house, the main residence?
Yes.
In other words, she was sleeping in the main residence?
Yes.
Okay. And she actually made some statement to you about walking around late at night, correct?
That she's up all the time at night. Something like that, yes.
Okay. And you assumed that the statement that she was sleeping in the main house was true, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you assumed that her statement about being up at night and walking around was true, correct?
Yes.
And one of the things that Davellin said was that she took a friend with her to the ranch and that she stayed in a room in the house. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you assumed that was correct or true?
Yes.
And one of the things that all of the children and Janet said to you was, they were emphasizing the fact that there was always somebody in the room with Mr. Jackson when one of the children was with him, correct?
Yes.
And you assumed that was correct, too?
Yes.
And Mrs. Arvizo made the statement that Mr. Jackson's room was like an open room and had no doors. Isn't that what she said?
Yes.
And you assumed that to be correct?
Yes.
Now, if any follow-up work was needed to be done in terms of contacting, let's say, Neverland Ranch, would that have been done by you or Miss Peters?
Miss Peters.
You're her supervisor, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever suggest that she check the ranch to see what Mr. Jackson's room is like?
No.
Did you ever suggest that she check the ranch to determine what the sleeping arrangements had been?
No. I think we did contact Santa Barbara Child Protective Services, and they hadn't gone out there.
But with regard to the completion of the report that you folks were doing, you didn't do any of that?
No.
Objection. Argumentative.
Overruled. The answer is in. Next question.
Okay. Off-the-record discussion held at council table. May I have a moment, Your Honor? Off-the-record discussion held at council table. Mrs. Walker, I want to go back to something to get some clarification, if I can.
Sure.
You know, I asked you the question about whether Janet Arvizo had spoken to you and said that the children needed to be taken out of their apartment. Do you remember me asking you that?
Yes.
You said, no.
Yes.
Do you recall if anybody ever called you up and asked you about that?
No.
Okay. No, it didn't happen? Or no, you don't recall?
Nobody called to tell me about her moving out of her apartment, no.
Or asking you if they should be moved out?
No.
Okay. Now, I just actually have a couple of questions left. I want to talk about the Fatburger meeting. And when you met Mrs. Arvizo at the Fatburger, she described her situation at the ranch as being horrible, did she not?
I believe they told Laverne and I that they hadn't been back to the ranch.
No, yes, well, but when she was describing the situation that she had been in at the ranch, at one point in time she described it to you, and the word she used was horrible, did she not?
Okay, yes.
I mean, you had a conversation with detectives with the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department back in December of 2003?
Okay.
Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay. And in that conversation, you told them that she described the situation at the ranch when she was there as being horrible?
Okay.
Nothing further.
All right. Now, your answer to the last question was, okay. Does that mean that's your recollection of what happened, or you're just agreeing that that must be what you said because Mr. Sneddon asked you?
Well, I'm just trying to remember exactly in terms of her saying it was horrible when we were at the Fatburger incident. Was there any other follow-up to that, and I can't remember.
All right, so do you remember her saying to you that anything to do with the ranch was horrible?
Well, I know they said that they hadn't been back there. And I think Miss Peters is the one that said, "Have you been back to the ranch?" And they said, "No, we haven't been back there. It was horrible, if that's the context in which she said it in, and I'm not sure."
Do you recall Miss Arvizo telling you that she was trying to get a hold of Michael Jackson and she wasn't able to talk to him directly?
You're talking the Fatburger incident?
At any time did she tell you that was one of her problems? That she wanted to talk to Michael Jackson directly, and she wasn't able to get a hold of him directly?
No, I don't remember her saying that to me.
I want to try to go back and clarify this, because maybe I misheard, because it seemed to me you were asked about the phone calls from Janet Arvizo Ventura by Mr. Sneddon just a moment ago, and you were asked if you ever told Janet Arvizo that they needed to leave the school and get a different apartment. Do you remember him asking you that question?
Yes.
And I may be wrong, but I thought you said you did not tell her that Janet had told you that.
I never told her that they need to move out of their apartment or leave the school that the boys were attending.
Okay, did Janet Arvizo tell you that?
She might have told me that.
All right.
But I never told her that.
And it wouldn't be your place in a phone call after your investigation is concluded to give her that kind of advice, would it?
No.
All right, now, there's been much about what was said in the actual interview. Have you reviewed your notes? You said you had notes and you eventually threw them away because they were incorporated, right?
Nods head up and down.
When was the last time you ever saw those notes?
2 years ago.
Alright, and do you know if everything in the report is absolutely accurate as to what the Arvizos were saying to the three of you that day?
Yes.
Do you think it's pretty accurate?
Yes.
Alright, now, did Davellin tell you that she spent time with a friend at Neverland?
As opposed to.
As opposed to taking a friend to Neverland.
I know for sure that she had a friend at Neverland, because she told us that she did.
Alright, did she tell you that she spent time at the theater with her friend?
Yes.
Did she explain where the theater was?
She did, but I can't remember.
Okay.
Where she said it was.
Some things were more important to get right in the report. I shouldn't say, right. I suppose it's important to try to get everything right, but there are some things that are going to be more of a focus in a report like that, in your experience, right?
Yes.
Did you have anybody draw you a diagram of Neverland?
No.
Did Janet Arvizo tell you that she stayed in the guest room?
I believe so.
Did she tell you where the guest room was in the house complex?
Not that I can remember.
Alright, do you recall anybody asking her where the guest room was?
Not that I can remember.
Alright, and then you were asked questions about whether or not somebody said that Michael Jackson visited Gavin at the hospital. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not you were told that Michael Jackson actually went to the hospital room? Was there any description saying, yeah, he arrived and came in the door and sat there at the hospital bed? Or was there a statement a more general statement that he visited with Gavin while he was ill?
He visited while he was ill.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Alright, first of all, you were asked by Mr. Sanger about your recollection of where Janet Arvizo was sleeping at Neverland Valley Ranch, correct?
Yes.
And, now, the report actually states, does it not, that, I stay in the visitors' quarters, but.
I'm going to object. This is hearsay, reading from the report.
Sustained.
Did you not tell me on your cross-examination that your assumption was that Mrs. Arvizo stayed in the main residence, correct?
Yes.
It's still your impression, is it not?
Yes.
And that Mr. Jackson's bedroom is another part of the main residence, correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to Davellin taking somebody with her to the ranch, do you remember whether she used the word, take, or whether there was somebody already there?
I don't remember.
Is this a fair statement, that your impression was, based on your recollection of that conversation, that the person that she was with at the ranch was somebody who was a friend of hers and that she took that person to the ranch with her to keep her company?
Yes.
And that, in fact, she said that she took the person to the ranch, and they stayed in a room in the main house, correct?
Yes.
Objection. Now it's compound.
Overruled. The answer was, yes. Next question.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
No further questions.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense will call Ms. Simone Jackson. And could we approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Discussion held off the record at sidebar. Hello. You can raise your right hand, please. Face the clerk here.
Yes.
Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Simone Peck Jackson. Simone. Pech. Jackson.
If you'd speak loud and use this microphone, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Miss Jackson. Miss Jackson?
Yes.
Hi, Miss Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Tom Mesereau, and I speak for Michael Jackson, okay?
Okay.
Alright. Do you know Michael Jackson?
Yes, I do.
How do you know him?
He's my cousin.
And where is your home?
In Lompoc.
Okay. And how old are you?
16.
Alright. Now, have you ever visited Neverland?
Yes, I have.
How many times do you think you've been to Neverland?
I don't know. A lot.
Many times, right?
Yes.
And have you spent the night at Neverland?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Scoot up a little bit more and get a little closer.
All right.
When you go to Neverland, what do you like to do?
I like to play in the arcade room.
Why is that?
Because there's a lot of games there to play.
And have you been playing in the arcade room for a lot of years?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you went to Neverland?
No, I don't.
How old do you think you might have been?
Probably about 8, 9 years old.
Okay. And do you have a brother?
Yes.
And what's your brother's name?
Rio Jackson.
And how old is Rio?
12.
Do you remember being at Neverland and meeting a family named Arvizo?
Yes, I do.
And do you know approximately when that was?
It was sometime around February of
Is that 2003?
2003.
And do you know why you were visiting Neverland in February of 2003?
It was Prince's birthday.
And who is Prince?
Michael's son.
Okay. Do you remember how old Prince was?
No, I don't.
Was there a birthday party?
Yes.
Where was the birthday party?
At the ranch.
Okay. Were the Arvizos at the birthday party? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else at the birthday party that you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay. And was Michael Jackson at the birthday party?
Yes.
Where did it take place?
It took place in the dining room.
Okay. And that's in the main house?
Yeah.
And what do you remember about the party?
There was. It was a surprise, and there was a lot of kids there, and that's mostly what I remember.
And if you know, how many kids were at the party?
About 10.
Okay. Were they children that you knew?
No.
Okay. And were there a lot of adults there, too?
A few.
Okay. And do you know about what time the party started?
No, I don't.
Okay. Did you ever meet Janet Arvizo?
Yes, I did.
And when do you think you met Janet Arvizo?
I met her the time after February. The second time I went there.
Okay. And that's in the year 2003?
Yes.
Okay.
It was sometime in March.
Was Janet Arvizo at Prince's birthday party?
No.
Okay. Was Gavin Arvizo at the birthday party?
Yes.
Was Star Arvizo at the party?
Yes.
How about Davellin Arvizo?
Yes.
Okay. Now, was this a party that appeared to be organized by Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. And you said it took place in the main dining room, right?
Uh-huh.
And was food served?
Yes.
Did everyone sit at a table?
Yeah.
All right. And were there presents?
Yes.
Okay. Did Prince get some presents?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And what else were the children doing that you remember at the party?
Playing games.
Okay. Were they playing in the main dining room?
Yes.
What kind of games?
I don't remember.
Do you know what time the party began?
No, I don't.
Okay. Did it end any particular time that you remember?
Ha.
Was it during the day?
Yes.
Okay. Did it go into the night, do you think?
No.
Okay. Now, were you staying at Neverland when you visited to attend Prince's party?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you go home at the end of the day?
Yes.
How did you get home? Did somebody drive you?
Yes.
Do you know who that was?
I don't remember who it was.
Okay. How did you get to Neverland for the party, if you remember?
Somebody came to pick us up.
Somebody associated with Michael?
Yes.
Okay. And does Michael from time to time have people pick you up and bring you to Neverland?
Yes.
And sometimes does Michael have somebody bring you home?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever see the Arvizo children at Neverland on any other date?
Yes.
And approximately when was that, do you think?
Sometime around March.
Okay. Was that March of 2003?
Yes.
Now, at Prince's birthday party in February, was your brother Rio there?
Yes.
And when you next saw the Arvizo children in March of 2003, was Rio there also?
Yes.
Alright, and where did you stay? Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. When you saw the Arvizo children at Neverland in March of 2003, did you spend the night?
Yes.
Did you spend more than one night?
Yes.
How many nights do you think you spent?
3.
Okay, and where did you stay during those 3 nights?
In one of the units.
Is that a guest unit?
Yes.
Okay, and is that one of the units that is separate from the main house?
Yes.
And those units are a short walk to the main house, right?
Yes.
Okay, do you know where your brother Rio stayed?
He stayed with Gavin and Star.
Okay, and where was that?
In one of the guest units also.
Okay, did you see Rio in the guest unit with Gavin and Star?
Yes, I did.
Did you actually go into the unit that Gavin, Star and Rio were staying in?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know what time of day you went into that guest unit where Gavin, Star and Rio were staying?
It was at night.
Okay, and was it your understanding that Rio spent the night in the guest unit with Gavin and Star?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember ever seeing Gavin and Star in the kitchen in the main house?
Yes.
When do you remember seeing that?
It was 1 o'clock in the morning.
Do you know approximately when that was? Was that in March of 2003?
It was in March.
Was this during the 3-day visit that you just described?
Yes.
Okay, and you were in the main house at that time of the morning?
Yes.
Okay, and you were in the kitchen at that time of the morning, right?
Yes.
Okay, what did you see Gavin and Star do in the kitchen at 1 o'clock in the morning during March of 2003?
I saw them take wine.
And when you say you saw them take wine, did you see one of them take it, or both?
Both of them. They each had a bottle.
And were they in the kitchen with the bottles?
Yes.
Did you see them actually take the bottle from some location?
No, I didn't.
Okay, did you walk into the kitchen and see them with these 2 bottles?
They didn't see me. I was sitting to the side. They didn't see me when they came in.
Okay, now, where were you sitting?
I was sitting in a corner.
Okay, now, if you can describe it, where is that corner?
It's on the closer side of the kitchen. There's like a video game there.
Okay,
And they couldn't see me.
and what time, excuse me? You were sitting there in the corner, right?
Yes.
Were you on a chair?
Yes.
And you saw Gavin and Star come into the main house?
Yes.
Did you see them go into the kitchen area?
Yes.
And did you actually watch them grab these 2 bottles of wine?
Yes.
What did you see them do? How did they grab the wine?
They grabbed it, and they both got Star got a wine bottle. A wine glass, and Gavin just took the bottle.
Okay, and what else did you see them do?
They left.
Okay, did you know which direction they went when they left?
They went through the back door.
Okay, and when was the last time you saw them that evening?
I didn't see them after that.
Okay, now, why were you sitting in the corner?
I was playing video games.
Okay, do you know about what time you went into the main house?
It was around 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, and do you know what game you were playing?
No, I don't.
Okay, did you see Gavin and Star get the wine from the refrigerator?
No, I didn't.
Where did you see them get it?
I saw them get it from a corner, but I don't remember. I don't remember where exactly they got it from.
Was that a corner in the kitchen area?
Yes.
Okay, now, is the kitchen area a big area?
Yes.
Okay, and you've been in that kitchen area many times, right?
Yes.
And how would you describe the kitchen?
Very big, very brown, lots of silverware.
Okay, and you see a lot of refrigerators, right?
Just one.
Okay, on the left side, as you face the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Now, if you can describe it, Simone, where is the video game you were playing?
It was on the counter where the people eat.
Okay, and do you sit on a chair at the counter?
Yes.
Okay, and is there one video game on that counter?
Yes.
Okay, so were you sitting there playing the video game?
Yes.
Have you done that before?
Yeah.
Okay, when you saw Gavin and Star grab the wine, did you say anything to them?
After they saw me, they had seen me, I told them that he weren't allowed. They weren't supposed to do that, and they told me to be quiet and not to say anything.
Okay, and was that the only discussion you had with them that evening?
Yes.
Alright, did you ever see them with wine any other time?
No.
Is that the only time?
Yes.
Now, do you know Gavin and Star's sister?
Yes.
And her name is Davellin?
Yes.
When did you first meet Davellin?
At the party.
Was that Prince's birthday party?
Yes.
Alright, and did you see Davellin sitting at the table at that party?
Yes.
Okay, was Davellin with her brother and sister at that party?
Yes.
Okay, now, when you saw Gavin and Star and Davellin at Prince's birthday party in February of 2003, did you know whether or not they were staying at Neverland?
No, I didn't know.
Okay, but you never saw their mother on that visit, right?
No.
When you saw Davellin, Gavin and Star at Neverland in March of 2003, did you see their mom?
Yes, I did.
And was that the first time you recall meeting their mom?
Yes.
Okay, where did you see Gavin, Star and Davellin's mom in March of 2003?
She was in one of the guest units.
Alright, and did you ever go into her unit?
Yes.
Okay, did you see her in there?
Yes.
Okay, in March of 2003 when you stayed at Neverland, what did you used to do during the day?
I would go out and see the animals.
Okay, is that at the zoo area?
Yeah.
Alright, and would Rio go with you?
No, he would stay and do his own thing.
Okay, and did Davellin, did Davellin ever go with you to the zoo?
Yes.
Did she go with you to the zoo on many occasions?
No.
How many times do you recall going to the zoo with Davellin?
Probably once or twice.
Okay, and what do you recall doing at the zoo when Davellin was with you?
We'd go see the birds.
Okay, and why don't you describe that, if you can?
We'd usually just go and talk to each other about what kind of things were going on in our lives.
Okay, and did she become a friend of yours?
Yes.
Okay, and did you ever talk to Davellin at any time other than those 2 visits to Neverland?
No.
Did you and Davellin ever talk on the phone, for example?
No.
Okay, but you thought of her as a friend?
Yeah.
Okay, and you and she went and looked at the birds, right?
Yes.
And is there an area where you have a lot of birds at the zoo?
There's just one small area where the birds are.
Are those the birds that are outside in the cages?
Yes.
Okay, did you and Davellin walk all around Neverland?
Sometimes.
Okay, and where would you walk to?
We'd usually walk to the train station or we'd take a walk to the movie theater.
Okay, and what would you and Davellin do at the train station?
Get candy.
Okay, and did you ever ride the trains?
Yes.
Okay, just you and Davellin?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember walking around Neverland with Gavin or Star? Did you ever do that?
Ha.
Okay, now, during your 3-day visit in March of 2003, did you spend a lot of time with Davellin?
Yes, I did.
Were you with Davellin every day?
No.
Okay, how many days do you think you palled around with Davellin?
Probably 2 out of 3.
Okay, and were you and Davellin ever in the main house in that visit?
Yes.
Okay, and what time of day were you and Davellin in the main house on that visit, if you know?
Usually in the afternoon.
Okay, and was it your understanding that your brother Rio was hanging out with Gavin and Star?
Yes.
Okay, did you see Rio hanging out with Gavin and Star?
Yes, I did.
Alright, Do you recall ever discussing with Davellin a possible trip to Brazil?
Yes.
How did that topic come up?
She just told me one day out of the blue that she had to go to Brazil and I probably wouldn't see her again.
Okay. Did she say anything about whether or not her mom wanted to go to Brazil?
Yeah, she said her mom wanted to go.
I'm going to object as hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Excuse me, Simone. What did you say?
Her mom wanted to go.
Davellin said her mom wanted to go to Brazil?
Yes.
Did Davellin say whether or not Davellin wanted to go to Brazil?
She said she didn't want to go.
Okay. Did Davellin comment about whether or not Gavin wanted to go?
She never said anything about Gavin.
Okay. How about Star?
Him either.
Okay. But she said her mom wanted to go, but she didn't want to go, right?
Yes.
Okay. When you observed Janet Arvizo in March of 2003, did she ever seem upset to you?
No.
Did Janet Arvizo ever seem mad to you?
No.
Did she ever look scared to you?
No.
Okay. How many times do you think you were in Janet's room in the guest units in March of 2003?
Just once.
Okay. And do you know about what time of day that was?
No, I don't.
Was it daylight? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. It wasn't the evening?
No.
Alright. And how many times do you think you were in the guest unit where your brother Rio was staying with Gavin and Star during your visit in March 2003?
Once.
Okay. Was that during daytime or nighttime, do you think?
Nighttime.
Okay. Was it your understanding that Rio stayed in Gavin and Star's unit for 2 nights?
One night.
1 night. Okay.
I'm going to object to lack of foundation, no personal knowledge.
Sustained.
During your visit to Neverland in March of 2003, did you know where Rio spent his evenings?
With Gavin and Star. I didn't know where they were going, but he stayed with Gavin and Star.
I'll object as non-responsive beyond yes or no. The question was, did you know, and lack of foundation.
Foundation. Sustained.
Do you know which guest unit your brother Rio was staying in?
No.
During 2003?
No.
March. Okay. Now, did you used to have meals with Davellin at Neverland during your visit in March of 2003?
Yes.
And where would you and Davellin eat your meals?
In the kitchen.
Okay. Do you remember ever eating meals with Rio, Star or Gavin during your visit in March of 2003?
No.
Okay. Did you eat every meal in March of 2003 with Davellin?
No.
Okay. How many meals do you remember eating with Davellin in March of 2003, if you know?
I don't remember.
Okay. Now, how did you get to Neverland, you and Rio, when you visited in March of 2003?
One of Michael's employees would bring us, would come and pick us up.
Okay. And when you left, did one of Michael's employees bring you home?
Yes.
Okay. When you came to visit Neverland in March of 2003, was it just you and Rio, or was anyone else with you?
Just me and Rio.
Okay. When you would visit Neverland in 2003, if you wanted to enter the main house, how would you do it?
Through the back door.
Okay. And would someone let you in?
Yes.
Did you have to knock on the door to do that?
Yes.
And is that a door near the kitchen area?
Yes.
Alright. And do you remember entering through the back door into the main house with Davellin?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to stop at this point?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 8:30.